Man rescues a dying crocodile, and the pair go against all odds to prove something worthwhile. There are so many animals that surround us. As humans, we have understood what species can be potentially threatening to us and what can be approached. Well, we all know that there are some animals you should never get too close to. However, there comes a time when there's an exception to these cases. Cases that lead you to believe that sometimes these notions turn out to be false. Here's a man who has found a best friend in an animal we all try to avoid, a crocodile. We all know that crocodiles are quite fierce and have a very violent reputation. These reptiles can get quite ferocious when they sense danger or while hunting for food. If there's one thing you need to know about them, then it would have to be the fact that if a crocodile isn't hungry or threatened, these reptiles do not usually go after someone or become a danger to anyone. We must remember that crocodiles are quite strong and will definitely be a threat if you enrage them or pose a threat to them in any way. However, there are some people who do not have the fear of these animals in them. One of these peoples would be Cheeto Shedden of Costa Rica. This man discovered on the edge of a riverbank a dying crocodile and did something most of us wouldn't even dare to do. Crocodiles are found in abundance all over the world. They can be found in North and South America, Australia, Africa, and Asia. Among the reptilian predators, the crocodile takes the top spot with a bite strength of 5,000 pounds per square inch. They can reach about 16 feet in length, and not only that, crocs can actually reach a weight of over 1,000 pounds. And since they are enormous, it really does make sense that most people would want to avoid having any contact with a crocodile. Obviously, who would want to stand in the way of such a fearsome beast? But Shedden had a very different reaction to the croc he found. His reaction was something that truly makes for a story worth noting. Cheeto Shedden works as a local fisherman and ended up discovering the crocodile at the riverbank. After doing that, he decided to name the crocodile Poncho. He met the reptile on the Reventazon River. Cheeto is not just a fisherman, but is actually an amateur naturalist and tour guide from Limon Province, Costa Rica, so he was not at all unfamiliar with the wildlife. As soon as Cheeto discovered that Poncho was there on the banks of the river, he realized that the croc was in a critical condition. Poncho was on the verge of death. The fisherman decided not to ignore the predator, but to do something about it. So the fisherman made a decision to take him home and try to nurse him back to health. Surely, this would not have been the approach for most of us. When Cheeto saw Poncho was lying there on the riverbank, he knew he had to do something. He could tell that the croc was a skinny 150 pounds and that it was in critical condition. When Cheeto approached the croc, he found out that the croc had been shot in both the head and the left eye, which he presumed had been done by a local cattle rancher who was taking care of his herd. Even though this was clearly a very severe injury, Cheeto could not just leave the poor croc to die there just like that. He did not feel right about walking away from the crocodile that was nearing death. Even though it was clearly very dangerous for him, Cheeto did not change his decision to try and help the croc. He saw just how helpless it was, so deserting Poncho was not an option. Even though the crocodile that Cheeto encountered was incredibly thin at just 150 pounds, he was still able to easily injure a human without much thought or problem. Since there was still a potential of getting attacked and harmed, Cheeto knew he had to take some precautions for himself. He decided to take on the help of a few of his friends to assist him in lifting the poor creature onto his boat to take him back home. Cheeto was planning on getting the crocodile back to a healthy condition in order for him to return to his natural habitat. He took the crocodile back home and proceeded on naming him Poncho, which meant strength. The crocodile was going to need a long time for his full recovery. The man and the reptile were both determined to achieve this goal. Poncho then got to be taken care of by the most efficient nurse he could have ever asked for. We say this because Cheeto never left his side while he was trying to recover. He made it a priority to get the necessary medication to prevent infection until the wounds were able to disappear on their own. Poncho was also fed a lot of healthy food like fish and chicken. This was certainly not the end, as both the man and beast quickly gained respect for each other. This must have been due to the fact that they spend so many nights side by side sleeping together. Another big reason why Poncho would heal quickly from the tender loving care that Cheeto had showered him with. His empathy and compassion had managed to nurse the beast back to life. In the course of the next few months, Cheeto fed Poncho using his own hands. He would even mimic the chewing motions in an attempt to entice the crocodile to eat more. Also, Cheeto had been convinced that the reptile needs his love and care in order to go on living. He went on to even state that this was what allowed him to continue living. Cheeto was taking care of Poncho as a pet, making sure that the wild animal was loved by him and that he wanted him to win this battle regarding his health. And moreover, it looked as though Cheeto taught an animal that was thought to be unable to show affection to somehow learn to do so. These two would even embrace in hugs and kisses, shocking so many people. One of the most interesting things about the man and his crocodile friend would have to be what Cheeto gave up for the croc. Yes, strange as it may sound, Cheeto's marriage ended because of the time and effort he placed on the crocodile. It is indeed a sad fact to have to point out that Cheeto's marriage ended because of the relationship he shared with a wild animal. His wife was a little shook about the kind of relationship that Cheeto had with the wild croc. So in the end, it became a little too much, so she decided to leave him. This is not even the strangest part of this whole incident. When Cheeto was questioned about how he feels about all this, he would answer by telling them that this was not a big deal. In fact, he claims he felt something special with the crocodile. Cheeto did not stop caring for the crocodile, but still decided to follow up his plan. So by the time Poncho was strong and healthy enough to get back to the wild in his natural habitat, so with the help of the same friends, it was again time for Cheeto to load Poncho onto the boat. Even though he loved spending time with the crocodile, he knew where Poncho truly belonged. So with his friends helping him, Cheeto was able to release Poncho in a nearby area where they had found him. And then the time came for the two to finally part ways. Even though it was a sad moment, everybody knew it was the right thing to do. And among them, Cheeto was included. By the next day, when Cheeto woke up from his sleep, something incredible had taken place. So in the place of residing in the river he had grown up in, Poncho ended up following Cheeto's boat home. Cheeto was unaware of this, and when the crocodile surprised him in the morning, he couldn't believe it. The croc had actually spent the night on his veranda, and it was an incredible sight to see. He thought they had given their goodbyes, so to see him there was a pleasant surprise. Cheeto soon learned that the croc made his decision, which was to come back to him and not move away from Cheeto. Ultimately, Poncho had to be kept in the lake on Cheeto's land. The inseparable pair clearly did not want to be taken apart from each other. In no time, their bond was strong, and Poncho was not complaining about the new lake he was kept in. In due time, Cheeto got married once more and even ended up having a beautiful daughter. He was able to create the family that he always wanted to have. It was clear that the croc he had rescued was also responding to his name. After Cheeto realized this, he was convinced that Poncho could be trained to do some other things too. Well, we all know that a crocodile would not be safe to keep around anyone else. So even though Poncho was part of Cheeto's life, he needed to prioritize his daughter's safety. So he took all precautions, and the baby wasn't allowed near Poncho if her father was absent. You can never be too cautious when a baby is around. Soon Poncho was able to learn more, and it was such a sight to see. Poncho was certainly not trained overnight. It took a long while for him to learn so much. More than 10 years of constant interaction with Cheeto for him to be able to become responsive and attend to his touches. The two would often enjoy swimming, proving that the quality time spent together indeed strengthened their unique bond. It was sort of unbelievable to see that they were so close. This was not like the ordinary man and pet relationship that we see every day. Poncho's case was something truly unique. Since he had a strong predatory tendency, he would slowly learn to set aside when he interacted with his savior. They were so comfortable with each other and were happy to spend time together. Then they started playing with each other eventually. The strange relationship that the man plus the crocodile shared was soon garnering attention from the tourists and locals. Since they were so interesting, the two would even perform every Sunday in the comfort of their own backyard. What truly makes them special is the fact that neither Cheeto or Poncho began the relationship with the idea of performing, but soon it became natural. The people found it hard to believe that the two were so effortless in playing with each other, and everyone could feel their bond. It all began when Cheeto would swim in his lake each morning to playfully spend time with his reptile pal. Poncho would then roll around with the man who saved him, uninhibited by the fact that there would be many people who stared at them. There was yet another thing that the two of them did that was incredibly heartwarming. After getting a lot of attention, Cheeto and Poncho decided that it was time they made their own documentary. This was done so that the public could get better understanding of how special their bond was. The film had been given the title, The Man Who Swims with Crocodiles. There are claims that due to the gunshots that Poncho had lived through, he will still suffer from brain damage that allowed him to be calmer than he was normally supposed to be. The injuries would have had some effect on some portions of the brain, getting him to have more human compassion and interaction. If you think about it, how many crocodiles have you seen act the way Poncho does? Crocodiles can actually live for about 70 years. As for Poncho, judging from the fact that he had met such a horrific incident with gunshots, the mere fact that he hit 50 was something worth noting. The dynamic duo would say their final goodbye on October 12, 2011, when Poncho expired because of natural causes. It was such a hard time for Cheeto as he had lost his best friend. Although gone, Poncho will be forever remembered because Cheeto made sure his funeral would be something memorable. The public ceremony was the first to happen in history, being the most formal and endearing crocodile funeral ever. The tale of the man and the croc teaches us that with kindness, compassion, and empathy, a bond can always be formed between anyone. If you thought a man and a crocodile sharing a strong friendship was weird, here is our list of the strangest animal pairings you probably thought was impossible. A Japanese zoo is a keeper of a very strange relationship shared by a hamster and a rat snake. This bond took place when the keepers placed the hamster inside the snake's cage for feeding. However, everyone did not expect to learn that the snake refused to eat the hamster. The two ultimately created a bond wherein the hamster would often curl up to the snake, even becoming roommates. An elephant sanctuary located in Tennessee has different kinds of elephants roaming around, minding their own business. One fine day, Bella the dog found herself roaming around the sanctuary and immediately became friends with Tara. The two of them did everything together, playing, eating, and even sleeping side by side. When Bella got sick, even Tara got depressed and the owners had to let them meet. This pair is definitely one of the weirder ones on this list of unlikely animal pairs. So back in the year 2004, these two animals became famous after bonding because of an ocean earthquake in the Indian Ocean. The tsunami orphaned the baby hippo called Owen, and it found a friend and a confidant in a 130-year-old tortoise. These two gained so much attention that they even have their own website. Primates tend to be quite defensive, and most of them will never become friends with animals outside of their species. Heck, most of them have trouble developing relationships with themselves. But when a stray dog named Roscoe rolled around, the orangutan immediately became hooked. They became longtime friends, and the two have maintained a solid connection ever since. There is yet another very strange pair that would totally surprise you. This friendship between a puppy and a chicken has left many people puzzled. The two immediately made headlines on the internet when they started hanging out. If you believe that this is not real, you can actually look for a video of them where the chicken jumps back and forth over the puppy and seemingly wants to cuddle. As we all know, most kittens do not like to make friends with anyone beside their mother. For Cassie the cat, this was not really a fact. She had been abandoned and soon taken care of by a wild crow named Moses. Majority of cats would end up chasing birds, but this was a different case. Moses the crow was actually keeping the cats safe from the dangers of the street. Since a tiger was too ill to take proper care of her cubs, a dog took over and began taking care of them. This happened in China's Nanning Zoo, and you can see that the dog is even breastfeeding them. The strange fact is that this is not something new in the animal kingdom of China. There have been reports that these estranged animal babies often end up being taken care of by other animal species.